Hey everyone, I'm Julie Gunlock. Welcome to a special pop-up version of the Bespoke Parenting Hour. These shorter pop-up shows will happen when an issue pops up in the news that's worthy of conversation and commentary. Some of you might have seen the viral video of a Georgia mom pleading with her local public school board to remove the mask requirements for her very young children. We have a clip of that to listen to now.
This is not March 2020 anymore. We have 3 vaccines. Every adult in the state of Georgia that wants that vaccine is eligible to get it right now, and every one of us knows that young children are not affected by this virus. They're not, and that's a blessing. But as the adults, what have we done with that blessing? We've shoved it to the side and we've said, we don't care. You're still going to wear a mask on your face every day, 5 and 6-year-olds. You still can't play together on the playground like normal children, 7 and 8-year-olds. We don't care. We're still going to force you to carry a burden that was never yours to carry. Shame on us. My 6-year-old looks at me every month before I come here and she says, are you going to tell them tonight? Tell them I don't want to wear this anymore. And I say, baby, it's not time to fight that battle yet. I try to explain that there's so many things, but it's April 15th, 2021, and it's time. Take these masks off of my child.
That is some pretty emotional, heartbreaking stuff there. To talk to me about mask requirements in general for schools and now for summer camps is my good friend, mother of 5, and the president of the Independent Women's Forum, Carrie Lukas. Hi, Carrie.
Hey, Julie. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, this is, that clip is pretty emotional. And I think, given the opportunity, most parents who are frustrated with a variety of things having to do with, schools opening, schools continuing to be closed, and now this masking, which seems to not be ending. I think a lot of us would sound like that Georgia mom. And I'm really glad that she did it because I think she gave voice to a lot of people who are afraid to speak up, and particularly in school districts where parents parents who complain aren't exactly welcomed.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that at this moment there's a lot of people who even people who've had a lot of patience, even people who thought that masks were a good idea and were something that people should have been doing from the beginning of COVID. We're now not only a year into COVID and have seen how this virus is much less virulent among kids. We have a lot of reasons to already be like, kids are not. But also at this point in America, you have, what is it now? Half of grown-ups now have vaccines. Yeah, exactly. So basically, if you want to be vaccinated, you can have gotten vaccinated now. And obviously there's always exceptions. There's some people who have something where they can't take the vaccine, but we're starting to get towards at least that inch towards that herd immunity. Yeah. And it's very frustrating when there's this moment of the failure of public officials not to reconsider their guidance at this point. Right. And also not to recognize the cost, because I think it's one thing for you and I to have to put on a stupid and often dirty old mask before we can walk into a restaurant and sit down. But for kids, we're talking about my kids just got on the bus and they stuck on their little masks on their faces, and now they're going to be sitting there. With their faces covered for 7 hours. I mean, it's completely crazy.
Okay. So, some of these listeners might not, they might homeschool their kids, or they might, send them to a private school or have a neighborhood pod. They might not know, they might not be paying attention. So let's just go over the CDC guidance currently is that schools should mask at all times. You mentioned 7 hours. We're talking kids in a mask for 7 hours. We're talking not being allowed to play on the playground, because that's another part of the guidance is the playground equipment is shut down. They don't mingle during lunch. They have to sit 6 feet apart. I remember you sent me this sad photo of your youngest having lunch, and he was spaced, 6 feet away from his little, playmates. Just insane. But before, let me just go about the CDC's guidance now on summer camps. Okay, so they say you must wear masks at all times, and I'm talking about kids. Okay, the kids must wear masks at all times, and we're talking kids as little as 2 years old. Okay, except when eating. This kills me. Swimming. How nice of them. Or napping. Okay. I mean, it's just insane. The mask requirement applies to vaccinated staff as well as all campers. Because, you might have some older campers that have been vaccinated. Each camper should have more than one clean mask available every day. They want the camps to establish, when possible, cohorts of staff and campers who will stay together throughout the day. So you think, oh, okay, well then for those cohorts, maybe they're going to let them take their masks out. Nope. The cohorts have to maintain 6 foot distancing while they're eating, and at other times the masks are off. Okay, so if they're like swimming, they have to swim 6 feet apart. They have to run 6 feet apart. Campers should be outside as much as possible in the heat and humidity with a mask on. There is no mixing or an interaction with the general public on trips out beyond the camp. So even Dr. Fauci, who let's be honest, Captain Cautious, has said this is as far as he would go, but he was like, it's a bit strict. It's a bit stringent. You think? Talk about like the understatement of the year. So, let's talk about the heat. We're talking the heat of summer. Okay. And these kids are being required to mask. This is insanity.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like sometimes when you read these instructions and this guidance, you're like, have they ever met a kid before? Do they have any contact with like children and especially toddlers? Can you imagine? I know Julie, your oldest is a little older than even mine, and my littlest is now 6 years old, and he's perfectly capable of keeping a mask on his face and whatever. But if you're talking about putting a mask on a 3-year-old, these poor what torture for that little kid, and they're not capable of keeping a mask on for that long. It's completely, and the funny thing is, I feel like, even at this point, I don't know what we're trying to do in terms of the benefits or what we conceive the benefits are, but certainly there's no thought. It's as if there's like the smallest potential upside, they are completely ignoring the tremendous downsides. And the downsides, I think that's what all of us as parents say. At some point, we have to take, kids are not bubble wraps. You have to, as a parent, you're constantly saying, should I, what risk should I take? Should I let my kid climb that tree? Should I let my kid, go swimming with his neighbors where I'm not going to be there to watch him? All these things. And a lot of times, there's real risks. As somebody, especially with swimming, I feel like a lot of parents are heading into the summer, everybody gets nervous, and for good reason, because drownings are a real issue and you've got to take precautions. But then also you want your kids to be out there and swimming and having fun. This is a constant part of parenting. And it's so unbelievably, ridiculous for the CDC and the powers that be to take that choice from us.
It also, don't get me started on President Biden and Jill Biden walking out to the helicopter wearing their masks, or leaving the Carter's house, coming out to the mics in a mask. It is really important that, certainly the Bidens, but also these government agencies instill confidence. You've got these draconian mask requirements when there's really good news about COVID. So as Senator Paul said, he said it's theater. He said, this masking is sort of this COVID theater. You have new COVID cases in steep decline. Mortality rates have plunged. Nearly half the country has received at least one dose of the vaccine. And for more than a month, most schools have been fully open and there have been no spikes in community outbreaks. This is a complete refusal to celebrate this good news and to continue with this pandemic theater. And they're doing it with these kids who have shown it's clear that they are not good vectors for this disease. I want to also say this, the public health community is getting some heat for this. You have the editor-in-chief of JAMA Pediatrics, who said that these mask requirements on kids are unfairly draconian, and many other people in the medical community has spoken out about this. So I hope this pushback helps, and especially I hope they start to ease these things up before it really heats up and these kids are going to have to be in camps. It's sickening to think of kids wearing a mask in this heat.
And here's the thing. I think that it's really such an abuse of the American people, because I do think that it's funny. The messages are just so mixed at this point. What is obviously, I know you and I, Julie, are somebody who believes that everybody should be out there getting their vaccines for your own good, for the good of the country. Go get your vaccines. But then I also do respect the right of people to, if you don't want to get the vaccine, that's fine. I think it's a mistake, but that is we're a free country, and it's not totally crazy, especially when you look at making the decisions on whether or not to vaccinate your kids. I understand that there's going to be a lot of people who say I'd rather take the risk of COVID, which for kids is obviously very low. So that's not an insensible thing. But at this point, the only reason, you have this mixed message where they're saying everybody get a vaccine, but then for your good deed of getting a vaccine and having, obviously everybody's been very successful in having COVID go away, you get nothing in return. You can't go back to your normal life. Right. You're not supposed to have a July 4th party. Your kids aren't allowed to play with other kids. It's just, it's really crazy. And it'll be really interesting. I feel like one thing that's going to be, I hope that there's people out there getting ready to study this, because we're going to see, I would like to see what the impacts are 5 years down the road on the damage that has been, the impacts of different age groups of kids when they've been forced in the amount of masking they were required to do. Because you think about, especially for little kids, the idea that you, little kids learn so much from reading people's expressions, learning how to talk. A big part of that, and is actually seeing people's mouths move and being able to mimic different things. I mean, my goodness, how what have we been doing with this totally cavalier, without thinking of how we're impacting kids? You think about the potential for substance abuse among teens, the potential for obesity rates going on as kids are forced. Who's going to want to go outside and run with a mask on? Nobody. It's
I don't want to even go outside and run without a mask on. I never want to run, but yeah, no, you make a good point, Carrie. And I've seen it in my own kids, and my kids, my youngest is 10, and I mean, I've already seen it in him. And he gets in the car. I need the spray, Mom. Or I come out of a store and I immediately rip the mask off my mouth. And sometimes I'll look back as we're driving out of the parking lot and my kid still has his mask on and I'm screaming, take your mask off. They've gotten so used to it and it drives me nuts. Yeah. And, he's 10. I can only imagine the effect on, very young kids. And also you can tell my kids are nervous. I need the spray, Mom, spray my hands. And, I'm trying to remind them that this is not normal. Right. And I mean, look, I'm fine if they want a little bit of, hand sanitizer on their hands, but it shows you this level of caution, this obsession with cleanliness that I think is not good. Look, I think all of us, I watched that Georgia mom. I know you did. I know we were privately texting about it and you said, this is really powerful stuff. I think we all feel like her right now, especially going into, this has been going on for over a year and there is this contingency out there that really wants to keep it going. It's exhausting, it's grating, but ultimately it's very harmful and it's harmful to kids. And that's what has gotten people so emotional and so angry about this. So thanks for coming on and talking about this, Carrie. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Julie.
This has been a pop-up of the Bespoke Parenting Hour. We'll be doing more of these as issues pop up, and we'll have some great guests to talk about some issues that are critical to parents. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode or like the podcast in general, please leave a rating or review on iTunes. This helps ensure that the podcast reaches as many listeners as possible. If you haven't subscribed to the Bespoke Parenting Hour on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, please do so you won't miss an episode. Don't forget to share this episode and let your friends know that they can get Bespoke episodes on their favorite podcast app. From all of us here at the Independent Women's Forum, thanks for listening.